Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Let's Get Ethereal. It's your gal Lauren here with the astrology for the week ahead. And this week, we're going to do a pop culture moment and look at Taylor Frankie Paul's birth chart. If y'all are into reality like me, she is part of the Mormon Wives cast and was supposed to be the Bachelorette, and they pulled the whole season, even though they fully filmed it. So I want to look at her chart, not only her birth chart, but the timing she's going through. So stay tuned to that at the end of the segment. But I first wanted to start this week with a little bit of a reflection because last week we switched into Aries season, aka the astrological new year, also called the spring equinox. They're all the same thing. And that like shifted some energy, certainly. And then we had Mercury go direct the same day. Reminder, Mercury, when it goes direct or when it turns retrograde, the days surrounding are the most wobbliest. I always tell people this. So if you're like Mercury's direct, why isn't everything like moving forward immediately? It's, give it a few days. I always say the planets when they switch from retrograde to direct or from direct to retrograde, they are at a standstill. Okay? So they're kind of coming back awake right now. And then if you've heard of shadow periods, that's when, not to get too complex, it's like the degrees that the retrograde started at, and then it moves back. Now it has to cover those same degrees. That's called the shadow period. And Mercury's shadow period doesn't end until April 8th. So just know shadow period is this beautiful time when all the things that kind of came up during Mercury retrograde, I can't even say Mercury, what's going on? Speaking up, communication. And during Mercury retrograde, sometimes things are a little confusing, especially this past one, you guys, in water signs in Pisces. And so even if in the midst of it, we aren't quite able to make sense of everything, that's what's beautiful about shadow period, especially the second end. Pre-shadow period tends to be a little wonky before Mercury retrograde. But afterwards, I'm like, this is when the lessons or the ahas or the things that needed to be returned to kind of falls into place. So from now until April 8th, just know that a lot is landing that's tied to the retrograde season, which was February 26th through March 20th. Okay. What else? The Astro New Year. Yes, we had the sun move into Aries, but reminder, we're in the last week of the collective numerology of the 4 month. And the 4 is very much like heads down, get stuff done. It's the reality check, which tied with that Virgo eclipse of reality check right out the gate in March. That was tough for everybody. We still have another week to like let things land, let them make sense, let ourselves get structured and get our shit together. Another big moment this like to talk about this week is every single planet is direct for a while, okay? When this happens every year typically for a brief amount of time. Because what's interesting about all planets direct is the outer planets, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, retrograde for almost half the year. So the fact that nothing is retrograde is pretty cool. It's like full speed ahead. I tend to notice during all planets direct, people talk about how fantastic it is, get things going, manifest. Yes, all true. But I say this every year. Sometimes it can feel very frenetic, very like buzzy, and there could be like, I don't know if I have fellow ADHDers, but it's just like, I have all these ideas, all this energy. Which one do I choose? And that can be a little paralyzing. So ground yourself, follow the flow, but don't forget, don't force or try to push through. Like it's like get in the river and let it take you. Not to get all metaphorical, but it's like things should be fast and easy when it's in alignment. Don't forget we still got some energy in Pisces with Mars and Mercury and the North Node saying if it doesn't resonate on a soul level, if it doesn't feel fluid, you might be forcing up against something that isn't in alignment. Okay. So I love all planets direct. Let's not get it twisted. The first planet that's going to go retrograde is Pluto the first week of May. And I'd argue like Pluto is the slowest moving. We don't feel it day to day. So even with Pluto retrograde, that's not going to change much. That's going to be more global. Okay. Um, so really July is when everything starts to go retrograde. So Neptune, Saturn, Mercury goes retrograde June 29th. So just think July. So three planets will be going retrograde in July. So even though Pluto goes retrograde in May, I'm like, we've got to like, what is the word I'm trying to think of? It's like the on ramp, like we're merging into fast moving traffic now. And we've been on back roads, kind of like at every stoplight. Even though we're moving forward, we might have to turn around because there was a roadblock. I'm getting metaphoric. But it's like go time now. Okay. Did you get an idea, or is one brewing and it's not quite crystallized yet? These next like couple months, like I guarantee things are going to move forward. Next week, we move into the 5 month collectively, much faster than a four. So if the four reminds me of Virgo, right? It's like the day-to-day responsibilities that we need to get done, the things we've put off. It happened during Mercury retrograde, so we were able to like, get overwhelmed by it or get a lot done. Hopefully you're on the end of getting a lot done. I did not. And then we move into the five. I always say numerology goes from like a little slower to fast, a little slower to fast, each number. The five is one of the fastest, okay? And reminder, we're in a collective 1 year, all of 2026. Regardless of your personal numerology, we are in a collective one, which is new beginnings, fresh starts, try something new, be brave, be bold. You can't sit and watch everybody else do things. You've got to do it yourself. In the five, I always say at its best, it brings change, fast change. It's a great energy for flirting, for traveling, for ridding yourselves of patterns that have kept you feeling stuck. Like this is the energy. And if you're in a personal 5 year, like that's the year I tell people, if you're unhappy, end it. Like I quit my 9 to 5, even though I love them. They're amazing. Spindrift, shout out, by the way. I worked there as employee number 7, obsessed with that company. But it was the year I quit my job to do this full time. So obviously in a 5 collective month, that doesn't mean everybody's going to be doing that, but that's kind of the energy, is like unstuck yourself, okay, in the 5. At its worst though, the 5 energy, especially paired with a 1, can feel very unsettling, like chaotic. Things can change on a dime. All the planets are direct. It's a 5 month in a 1 year. It's Aries season, and we've got planets moving into Aries soon towards the end of the month. In April. April's gonna be the month to watch. I think globally it's gonna be insane. Like we know this show is much more about us. But it's like utilize this next week, okay? Not to jump too far ahead into April, but this last week of March, if you like, I like to call people out on Instagram. All the things that get the most likes are like these like over promises of like your life is going to change because it's the astrological new year and Mercury went direct. We still have a slow last month. We have Mars in Pisces. We have Mercury getting its energy back, and we're finishing the 4 month. I told everybody March is not the month to be promised the fire horse and the 1 year and all of it. Okay, one more month. Definitely we're gaining momentum this week. Okay, and we're about to talk about all the astrology, but I would say utilize this week to finalize, slow down, get organized, because April, I always say try your best to keep your schedule as open as possible in the 5, because things can change or something better can show up or a pivot is necessary or a disruption or chaos. Okay. All right, let's get into the astrology. There's a lot going on this week, but it's not as big or insane as past weeks. Now we get to like, I don't know, use this energy. So, oh, I have Taylor's chart pulled and her birthday. Okay. I would say starting on Monday, we still have the Sun and Neptune. This was Kazemi yesterday on Sunday. And so Sun Neptune days, we can't forget that Saturn is with Neptune. So it's like totally changing the energy of anything to do with Neptune, Saturn's influencing it, anything to do with Saturn, Neptune's influencing it. It's the story of the year. We've talked about it every single episode. But just to stick to like one theme at a time, Saturn and Neptune, it's definitely reflective. We could be still processing something, still a little bit in the feels, the intuitive hits are there. It's just like still a little bit of a foggy moment. Neptune is the planet associated with Pisces that we talked about last week, of like just things getting, just in the feels a lot. Okay. So we got a little hit of that. The moon entered Gemini though this morning, which I think helps a lot, because Gemini is the sign of our logical minds, communication, sharing ideas, learning, speaking, teaching, very curious. Okay. So conversations will start picking up as soon as today on Monday. Information will start moving again after weeks of like that kind of deep sludgy emotions. I like the Pisces eclipse energy that we came out of, or not eclipse, but Pisces heavy energy. This feels like the brain is turning back on. So I really like, out the gate Monday, moon in Gemini. Okay. My face is covering the chart. Sorry for my cursor. Also, reminder, you guys, I said that I would do 8 of these episodes and then reassess. So I will get a better, like a cursor that shows better and astrology platforms. But I really needed to be scrappy to start this, or I would have never started it. So thanks for being patient and dealing with my funny, ugly charts. I love this platform, by the way. But okay. So we have moon in Gemini. I'm partial to, I'm a moon in Gemini in my birth chart, girly. Tuesday, we don't have much changing. Okay. Now keep in mind, what do I say every week? These, like, even though they happen on like Wednesday's a big day, we're feeling it all week and into the next. Okay. But Wednesday's big. Okay. Because we've got Sun, Saturn, Cazimi. Reminder, Cazimi just means like within 1 degree. It's in the heart of the sun. It really illuminates that planet's vibes. But Saturn, Sun, Cazimi, Neptune's not far away. It's within 3, probably like, 3 degrees. But these two are sextile, supportive. So Pluto, okay? Aries is self. It's also the leaders. We think of Saturn as like governmental leaders, okay? And your Aquarius is the collective, okay? So this is like leaders, collective. I can't not mention that. But in general, Saturn represents like responsibility, leadership, structure, consequences, hard work, all those things. The Sun represents identity, direction. When they meet in Aries, this fiery, independent, bold sign, it's also the sign of leadership. I think there's a strong theme for all of us of stepping into authority or being able to like take something more seriously. Okay. So if retrograde in the past few weeks were overwhelming, emotional, the eclipses, confusing, not quite clear, this is kind of calling us out a little, is what I want to say, is like, is some of hesitation have to do with fear of like stepping into something, to being a leader, the responsibility of that, like, oh boy, what does this mean? Do I want the easy route? This is saying we can't take the easy route. Saturn is work. In Aries, it's just like, can the real you please stand up? Can you take up space? Can you be an authority? And if there's nothing that you really want to do in that way, cool. It's just like, maybe it's just take responsibility. Don't get so rattled by other people, like the other sign is Libra, other people's energy or projections. It's like, it's very singular, this energy. It doesn't mean we ignore people. You have to be good friends, be empathetic. I kind of hate when people are like too boundaried up that they forget to be like a good friend or part of a community. That takes, effort. But y'all know what I mean. Like, we got to find the balance. And if you've over operated in that over giving, this is the week where it's like, nah, bitch. You got to take care of self, and you got to like put in the work. It's like it's not the easy route, okay? You got to recognize what's yours to carry, what isn't. It doesn't feel super heavy, but it's more like clarity around where you need to lead your own life differently. um but I can't not mention global energy with this because Sun is still close to Neptune. It's talking to Pluto. These are outer planets. Okay. Neptune and Pluto are collective energies to me. So it's like Aries leaders meeting reality, Saturn. Okay. Narratives can shift, Neptune. I've been calling this the fuckboy exorcism, or the leadership's got to change, or we can't have blind faith in everybody anymore. We have to think for ourselves, Aries. But it also is like power dynamics involving the collective, Uranus rules. Uh, Sorry, sometimes when I see signs, I say the planet. Aquarius rules the collective, Uranus rules Aquarius. But Pluto's there. This is the big story. When Pluto entered Aquarius, it's a 20-year transit of deep transformation, Pluto, for the people. Uranus rules freedom, like future. I always told people, like, it's in my workbook, it's in everything I've said about this transit last year, that at first it's going to bring up the dark side of this, like limiting freedoms, right? We're seeing a lot of that with, like, ICE is in the airport. There's wars going on, and it's like before we get to the end of this transit, we're going to have these moments that hopefully the whole goal of Pluto and Aquarius is to bring people together to create a more community vibe. But at first it's going to polarize. Okay. And this, looking at kind of the leaders, it's like, what are some leaders doing that are going to like either polarize, limit freedoms, or they could band people together? This kind of feels like protests are going to be breaking out. So I don't know what part of it is causing that. Probably war, or maybe it's like what's going on with the governmental shutdown in the airports, and like maybe they'll do a strike or a protest, or something will shut off. That's kind of like this teaming up with the community. Sorry if you can hear a little clicks. That's my dog, and I'm letting him in because he's sick. So, but I think this is probably going to be, maybe it's like governments. It doesn't have to just be US. Okay. This feels more of like, who knows, governments making decisions that make an impact or affect a large group of people, or when leadership direction changes in visible ways. Because like Aries is leadership, Aquarius being the people, Pluto transforms whatever it touches. It's like something could be going down. Saturn will be sextile to Pluto for a while. Okay, it's actually exact on Sunday, I think it is. But this is when the sun is exact with Pluto later on in this day. Because Saturn moves slow, so does Pluto. So just know there could be like a trigger moment this week, but continues to play out. It might be quiet too. This might be behind the scenes, because Saturn is slow. It's like a slow decision. Okay. Whereas before, what kicked off the war was that trigger of Mars and Uranus. Like I said, that is a spike, a square, an intense. Those, when they get together, it's always something crazy in the news. That was a trigger moment. This feels more of like, maybe it's behind the scenes, or maybe we do see something in the news. But I think ideally it's banding people together. There could be protests or strikes, or unfortunately it could be more of like a riot energy. But it might not play out this week. It could be a slow burn. Okay. But the things that are happening and shifting, interesting. But for us personally, just getting back to us, because that's what I like to talk about most. But I can't not give people the heads up. So I'm torn. You guys let me know, like, bringing the astrology into what's going on in the world to help make sense of it, yay, I'll do that. But it doesn't really change anything. We don't have control over those big things. So I want to empower us mainly with like how does it impact impact us. So I think it's more step into your role energy. Okay, something you've been avoiding responsibility around could be the thing. Something may feel very clear, like I've got to do this thing. It can be work related, it could be just in your personal life related, it could be in a relationship, but it rests on your shoulders to do something about it. Okay, this isn't really happening to us, it's because of something that we're stepping into. The moon moves into Cancer this day, so I think whatever is going on, it's like, we need to have the people that feel like family around us or our cozies. Emotional awareness is going down for the next couple days with the moon in Cancer. Okay. All right. Let's look at Thursday. We've got more of a like emotional relationship type of thing going on, whereas that stuff we just talked about feels like bigger themes that will continue to play out. This is just a quick, it's going to feel maybe the day before, the day after, but on Thursday, Venus, the planet of love, money, relationships, worthiness, values, is with Chiron. Okay. Chiron is the wound, it's the healing process. It's called the wounded healer. And I think in Aries, this is about personal identity inside relationships. Okay. Reminder that Aries is about self. Venus is ruled by Libra, the sign of others. So with Chiron, if you're single, for example, this could be just like a big awareness around what's held you back or what's kept you from even wanting a relationship, kept you hung up on somebody, in patterns, attracting the same type of person. It's time to take accountability though. How many times have you heard your friends or yourself say, I just keep attracting emotionally unavailable people, or men are narcissists, or blah, blah, blah. We attract what we think we deserve, believe. I'm not saying you deserve a narcissist. No, 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 no. That's no fun. I'm just saying, like, we've got to put on the work ourselves. Interesting that we're doing Taylor Frankie Paul's birth chart. She's clearly in a toxic dynamic, but like, she's got to do the work. She is also toxic. We've seen from the videos if you've looked at it. So this is kind of calling us to, that felt very serious, Lauren. Ew, it's mostly like a sweet, like healing energy. But I can't not say it in Aries. I'm like, the sun is in Aries now. We're getting a little more sassy and we're saying we're not going to like overly nurture it to death, Pisces heavy sky. We're not going to just be stuck in our feelings. We're going to take fucking action, Aries. Okay. I do notice when the energy shifts, I start to talk more like that energy. So if I'm going to be a little more sassy and blunt, maybe that's why. But Venus and Aries, radical accountability around relationships and patterns in relationships. If you're in a partnership or relationships are coming up in like more of friendships or family, what have you, it's just saying like, okay, what are my needs? Who's over accommodating for who? Who's going to put in the work to actually shift the dynamic, or are we just going to be at odds with each other this whole time? So I would say learn where you've maybe shrunk in the past, or where you've learned to overcompensate, or where you're ready to show up differently. There could be a healing conversation during this time, whether your needs become more clear or somebody else's needs become more clear. It's could also bring up, heads up, old insecurities and let those feelings show up. I think they're revealing maybe like a core wound or a pattern that wants to shift. And from personal experience, I'll just share with you guys, even though you like logically understand the pattern and you choose to act differently, your nervous system still has a hard time with it. Like I've gotten really good at recognizing patterns when it comes to dating and like exiting quickly because I totally have done the work and I understand. but it still is hard for the nervous system to catch up. So being aware and logically understanding it, you also have to take action even if you aren't fully ready emotionally or your body is still like attached. Just know this Venus Aries Chiron is saying, please act with the new thing. Like, we can't just study things. We have to actually follow through and do them. And that's what this is saying. So set the boundary, cut off the person, or do the healing conversation if they're worthy of it. Do the work on yourself. It's very vulnerable energy, but it's very productive. I like it. I think this is necessary. You are allowed to do something differently than you've done before. So this could be a realization moment. Okay. With Venus, it can also just can be around money. We all have patterns around money as well. Money and love both being ruled by Venus. It's interesting that they're tied into this self-value, self-worth moment. You could be good at one and bad at the other, or having struggle in both, or be very good at both. Yay. But this is going to reveal maybe, like, I would encourage deep diving money like wounds, love wounds, and try to pinpoint, like, just think with money, it's like, how did I grow up? Were my parents really frugal and then I rebelled and now I'm like, I gotta enjoy my money in the moment? Were my parents really like always struggling with money and now I hoard my money? Or are you emulating your upbringing? What are your money stories? If you were to get a bunch of money tomorrow, would there be fear around deservedness? How are you with charging like clients or asking for money, or getting paid what you deserve at work, asking for the raise, negotiating contracts? Does that feel really uncomfortable in your body? Still act like, and still ask, okay? And then question, like, if you were to get a bunch, is there a fear of how you would mishandle it? Would that come with more responsibility, more pressure? What are your stories? Okay. That's loud. Even if it doesn't show up loudly for you, I encourage you to deep dive it on Thursday or the day surrounding, anytime this week. Okay. Rant over. Friday, we just have, all of this energy still going on, but the moon moves into Leo, late morning. And that brings a lightheartedness. It's going to be the moon early, in the day is going to be trining fellow fire signs, Aries. So the moon trines Saturn and Sun. It'll be short-lived, but there could just be like a bing, fun stuff Friday. And then Leo reminds us, like, what is joy? What is passion? What is romantic in our lives? How can we create? How can we lead from the heart? Playful, goofy. I think Friday would be a good social day. Okay. I think we're all a little hermity still, but with the Venus and the sun in fire, and now the moon will be in fire all day Friday into Saturday, maybe we're just going to have our sass back and we're going to feel more, if you've been feeling a little lackluster. I think this weekend will be really fun. So I encourage you to just go for it. Okay. Be silly, have fun, dad jokes, paint, create, decorate, buy flowers, that kind of stuff. Move your body with all this fire energy activating. And then don't forget, get your responsibilities done. I'm like, I'm going to do taxes this week. Okay. Saturday, we just have that Saturn is exactly sextile Pluto. We talked about this already. We'll be feeling it for a while. Saturn and Pluto. It's like rebuilding a system in a sustainable way could be the theme in your life. It's excellent energy for committing to something that feels like it has longevity. Saturn is longevity. Pluto is transformation, stepping into power. And so I think if you have gained a lot of clarity, eclipse season has shifted something for you. Mercury retrograde made you reflect and kind of re-edit. This is the time where I'm like, whatever you put out there, if you do have the clarity, this feels like it can last. It's like leadership and transformation and stepping up to the plate that creates real change. This isn't fast change though, with Saturn involved, but I like, I love a fast moment. I'm like, give it to me now. But I think a lot of us are like that. But this is more like, wouldn't you rather like long-term safety, security, stability, long-term success in whatever you're trying to put out there into the world? So yeah, I think collectively, this will continue to play out. Institutions kind of restructuring their power. Um, it's significant, but in our personal lives, I really like this. It's like the leadership storyline shifting. Okay. Sunday, we just have Moon moving into Virgo later in the day. I love a Virgo Moon moment. Sunday, it's more of like in the evening, but I think of like Sunday late afternoon, like get in your home and organize and clean and do all the Virgo stuff. Okay. Um, we'll have Virgo moon on Monday as well, starting next week. And reminder that next week will turn into a collective 5 on April 1st. And I think the energy is quite like the for momentum. Okay. What did I write down for next week? We have Venus moving into Taurus. Love that journey for us. And yeah, the new numerology. So I did mention it. Okay. I would say big picture with all of this, let me stop sharing. I think like all the energy lately has felt pretty intense, right? And it makes sense if we're looking at it in an astrology lens, which, my brain always does. But we've moved from this reality check eclipse into that Pisces heavy sky, and then immediately into the astrological new year, which is a beautiful reset. The astrological new year, it's a reminder to like reflect back at all the like if you want to look at your year and those season chunks, I think that's really helpful. I like to look at it as the moon cycles, like every couple weeks. But it's also helpful. I tend to notice people doing big things around the season changes. I launched my moon events on the astrological new year. I've been doing them for 5 years. I launched my course, which is coming back alive, I promise. I got derailed with my dog, and all the emotions that have come with it. And I launched that on an astrological new year. And so think back of all the March timelines. It's always around the 20th or 21st of March. So reflect back. Have you done big things around the astrological new year? There's also that timing of if you want to think of the opposite season, which is the fall equinox, which is when the sun moves into Libra, which is end of September, around the 20th, I believe. That's when we start Libra season, which is mostly in October. So I think, this week, even though it's a little more quiet at first, it's definitely not empty. It's a transition week. We're closing out this 4 month, this structure, retrogrades de-wobbling. I promise the momentum is coming. I'm so excited. We got the trigger point of the Astro New Year last week, and it is all coming up for air. Okay. All right. The pop culture segment, I'm just going to pause my screen so I can pull up her chart and not waste your time with a dull moment. So BRB. Oh, wait. Am I allowed to pause it? Pause. Okay. BRB. Ta-da! We're back with Taylor Frankie Paul's birth chart on this inner wheel. We do not have her time of birth, so do not pay attention to the order. This isn't her ascendant or MC or houses, okay? Time of birth, a little lesson corner, is very important because it clicks your chart into place, which is half the story, which is like what house do your planets fall in? Your rising sign is like the direction of your life, the lens in which you move through life. I always say it's your decision maker. So without time of birth, we won't know these things about her. But I've paired it with what's going on in the sky. This is high level astrology. And I wanted to look at, is there anything with these lines? These are aspects talking to her planets. I won't know what area of life but this is the first thing I noticed. I was like, damn. Okay. But first, let me just like say, I'm going to keep this like not about the issue at hand. I'm just going to look at her chart, and I'm always like, regardless if you like disagree with somebody or not, I will always see somebody's highest potential in their birth chart. Yes, I will see their struggles, the way that they can reach their highest potentials, whether somebody is in their what I call high vibration, highest potential of their chart, or if they're in the tough, low vibration of their chart. There's always room for growth. I don't believe in pulling somebody's chart and then talking shit about them. Ew, that's gross. Okay. This is more for fun. Who watches Mormon Wives? I do. Great show, fun, interesting. I love reality TV. And the star of the show, Taylor Frankie Paul, was slotted to be the Bachelorette. I don't think that was a smart choice, seeing the show Mormon Wives, but and I think that they were just wanting ratings. She has a huge following on TikTok. That's what she's known for. I'm sure those that are actually interested in this section already knows this part. If you aren't, like, feel free to move about your day. But I just wanted to mention, like, yeah, clearly there's some toxic behavior going on, toxic relationships. I do not condone any of the violence that she has been shown on the videos, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about, like, what are some of her parts of her birth chart that kind of explain her. She's very polarizing, but very intriguing. Okay. And then what are some timings? Because I really feel like this was a destined shift, but it's coming at her hard first. Okay. All right. So just focusing on the inner wheel, I pulled her chart and I'm like, oh my God, this is so duh. People tend to probably focus on she's a Gemini. That's so not a big deal in somebody's chart, their sun sign. I mean, it's a big deal. But Gemini, she's got her Mercury and Sun in Gemini. Gemini is the curious, it's the communication, media. Like, she's literally, I always say Geminis can't not share. They will talk. Maybe she overshares. Her Mercury, which is her logical mind, is in Gemini. So Gemini energy is the energy of, I can do many things very well. At its toughest, and I have a Gemini moon, ADHD, so it can be hard when there's like a lot going on, but Gemini energy prefers that. I would assume she's a manifesting generator in human design, with this energy, which is like jack of all trades, master of all the things, can pivot very well. So with all this in Gemini, I'm like, okay, this gal can pivot. She has many different qualities and she's got to share her voice. Okay. Highly curious. Yes, Geminis can be a little flirtatious and scattery, but justice for Geminis. Geminis are great at business because they can do many things very well, wear many hats. But what's screaming at me about her chart is her Mars, which is the fighting style. Mars rules our way of aggressing. It's our sexual nature. It's our physical body. It's like how we take action. It's at the last degree of Aries. Aries is the sign of like fast, intense. And so this is somebody, if this was just like a birth chart reading, I'd be like, do you have a temper? Because Mars in Aries pops off immediately. Anger comes out. Okay. The one benefit of Aries when it comes to like Mercury there, meaning verbally, or Mars there being like anger, is they tend to get over things quickly. They are very reactive typically. But it's like, okay, as long as I express my anger, I can move on. So that's what I do appreciate around Aries energy is like, I couldn't relate. I have my Mars in Capricorn, which is very calm and centered, but it's refreshing when people say it like it is, and then they can move on from it. What doesn't let her move on is look at all this Scorpio. Okay. So just out the gate, Mars and Aries, sass, pop off, high sexual drive, high anger, high physicality. We see it, we understand it. Okay. This is what I'm most fascinated about her chart. She has a moon in Scorpio, and it's, depending on what time she was born, it doesn't change. I checked. So this is the most important placement in a birth chart, is the moon sign. The moon is our inner emotional foundations. It shows our patterns, our attachments, our deepest, truest self, how we need to be nurtured, whether we received it or not, shows how we express this, high vibe or low vibe. Scorpio moons are the hardest moons to have. They are my favorite. So if you have a Scorpio moon and you're like, well, I think you'll probably, like, people with Scorpio moons probably love to hear that they have the hardest moon, because they're like, yeah, I feel it. Okay. Because moon is that soft, emotional, nurturing placement. It represents our mother. When moon is in Scorpio, almost guaranteed, depending on the aspects and house, you might have a lovely relationship with your mother. But moon in Scorpio tends to have a lot of intensity around the relationship with mother, caregivers, early childhood. Okay. So it could be in a positive way. You're like, with Scorpio moon, you are somebody that is such a sponge to everybody else's emotions. And when you're little, you can't articulate that. You are perceiving things, you are understanding things on a soul emotional level, but not logically yet. Scorpio moons really need caregivers that explain things to them, that make them feel safe, that make them feel trust. Scorpio is all about trust. If there is not trust, that's the toxic side of Scorpio comes out. Justice for Scorpios, as well. Gemini and Scorpio are the signs that need the most defending. And I have a Scorpio ascendant and a Gemini moon. I think I was born with it so I can, like, protect these people. Okay. Moon in Scorpio. If there's trust, this is the deepest, most ability to transform, phoenix from the ashes, can really work on themselves and heal, can be a sense of healing to other people, can really empower people. And she has this capacity. She's going to do it. Her North Node is in Scorpio as well, with Scorpio's ruler Pluto. This girl is going to have a redemption moment if she goes towards healing, boundaries, really going there, because the toxic side of Scorpio placements is not being able to move on. Scorpio is like, I remember, it is in my bones. There is, with the water signs, there could be resentment or just like buildup of emotions. Scorpio does rule intimacy, vulnerability, merging. It's the sign of sex. And it's just like, when somebody has a Scorpio moon, I'm like, if you have sex with somebody, you will bond to them. So choose wisely. Same with moon in the 8th house, people. I have that too. But like, her Mars and Aries, just like extremely physical. But then the Scorpio is like, watch out what you do with that, because it will just be like in your bones forever. Scorpio moon, what they needed was, any of you that are listening, but like, let's just focus on her. Obviously, she's like an intense version of this. Safety, security, something out on the table. I always say, for parents that have Scorpio moon kids, it's like, just tell them how you feel as you move about your day, so they don't absorb it and get confused about them being a sponge to other people's emotions. Scorpio moon kids are very perceptive. They tend to be very clingy and emotional or intense, and they look through your soul. And so you might as well be honest to them. They can be the most amazing children. They can have the most amazing connection with their mothers. So you can high vibe this. But if you're the one that has it, you really needed a childhood where you can make sense of things. Tends to be, on the tough side, specifically tough side, you could have a mother that is very intense, up and down emotions. And then there can be you parent the parent situation. We see this with her mother in the show. It's like her mother's wounds. Pluto is everything hidden below the surface. It's psychology, it's human behavior and patterns. And she's kind of taken that on. Okay, she's starting to emulate her mother's decisions, but the mother is kind of like not taking accountability as much, at least what we've seen. And so there's a lot to unpack there for her. Okay. North Node being in with Pluto in Scorpio, this is what, like, if you have this in your birth chart, I just did a reading for a guy that has this. I'm like, you're meant to step into power. This is like the fame placement for her. I wonder if this is like in her 10th house of career, is my guess. Um, Interesting. Um, because your destiny involves deep transformation. Pluto and Scorpio also rules sex. What is she known for out the gate? What made her famous, even more famous, was the sex scandal that she talked about openly. She's a Gemini. She can't not share it, right? She can't not call people out. She acts before she thinks with Mars at the last degree of Aries. But what's interesting on a soul level, your North Node is where you need to go. It's what your soul needs to learn. It's what you're meant here, like meant to be here to overcome, to pursue. And that's when life begins to open up for you. And in Scorpio, if you have North Node in Scorpio, you are meant to go towards therapy, unpacking, uncovering. It's everything hidden below the surface: psychology, mysticism, astrology, making sense of self and patterns and healing. Okay. So she's meant to do that. We already know she does that from the show. Like, she does a lot of things in therapies and healing. I think she needs to continue, not just talk therapy. This feels like somatic, like nervous system, EMDR stuff from like early childhood, 0 to 7 stuff. Okay. As well as like why she's attracting certain things and acting certain ways and very reactive. So yeah, personal side, go towards Scorpio. On a professional side, I'm like, she is meant to phoenix from the ashes. When people have a bunch of Scorpio energy, I'm like, you shed your skin so often, you become a new person, you outgrow people, things, your own self a lot. So she's going to have a reinvention moment, I promise. So Taylor, if you happen to be watching or listening, girl, don't waste a crisis. This is a call to action. This is for you to step into more of your purpose, which I think is around being very vulnerable about these things and owning it, being truthful. Scorpio loves truth, accountability, vulnerability, talking about intimacy, talking about the things we like to hide from others and ourselves. If you start talking about that, Pluto being conjunct your North Node is saying you are meant to share it so that you can empower other people. That is your destiny. Okay. What house this falls into, we need your time of birth. That would be very helpful. Okay. But so destiny is to reveal. She already has planets in Scorpio, so it's easier for her to get here. Okay. Timing of nodal return is between 37 and 38. So there's time, but please, you can skip that and go towards it. There's going to be a big transformation moment here. Okay. The other thing is interesting. During her Saturn return is probably when the TV show came out, which was because her Saturn's in Pisces. But what's going on currently is what's fascinating me. Okay. So we already know she's meant to go through big transformations. She is like, yeah, her messiness is going to be part of it, and she needs to heal. Trust is huge. Intimacy is huge. Anything else she needs. The more self-discovery, the more making sense of self, it will lead to your destiny, which is helping other people make sense of themselves, their wounds and patterns. I think that feels too intense for her right now to be responsible for anybody else. But just know in the future, I think she's probably going to have I bet she's going to announce a podcast out of this or a book deal. Okay. Because the timings, what I can't ignore is her natal Saturn, which is in Pisces. Reminder, this is her birth chart on the inner wheel. Here's her Saturn. Here's the sky currently. Here's Mercury and North Node. Mercury just went direct. Last week, when Mercury retrograded over her Saturn, that's when the contract Mercury got cut. Okay. So Saturn, for everybody, that's wherever Saturn sits in your chart, that's where you have to do the most work. That's the tough thing that gets better with age. It's the like back against the wall placement in our chart that we have to struggle. And so it represents reputation, structures, contracts, obligations, long-term container, responsibility. Saturn is when things get real, okay? Something either stabilizes or hits a wall when Saturn in the chart is activated. So when major transits activate Saturn, like this destiny, North Node moving through the sky, obviously she has North Node and Pluto always, that doesn't change with Pluto always in Scorpio. But where the North Node's moving in the sky and you layer that onto your chart, that's going to bring destined moments related to that planet. So Saturn is work, responsibility, long-term commitments. North Node, destiny, triggered it with Mercury retrograde that made it like rebuke something. And so there's usually a decision point about responsibility, consequences, longevity is really what triggered here. Mercury rules media, contracts, negotiations, communication, sharing your voice, any of that. It was retrograding. It went over her Saturn and retrograded back over. It went direct and it's going to pass again. I wonder when it will pass. Let's see. Mercury today is at around 9 degrees. And her Saturn's at 11. This week, later this week, I guarantee we're going to hear from her. She's going to either do a really in-depth interview. She's going to launch, like maybe not this week, but launch a podcast, or share her story, or she's getting a book deal behind the scenes to tell her story. I think if she does it right with her North Node with Pluto, and maybe this takes some time behind the scenes to like not just react and get it out there for the public. I think we're going to hear from her this week with her side of the story, or she's setting up an interview like with Nick Viall or something to talk about her side of things. But I hope that she takes it more seriously and this is a redirect for her and that she can start something deeper. It's probably too intense for her right now. This is such an insane time for her to see through that and to take on a responsibility of a whole redirect. I don't expect it, but I think that's where it's leading, okay? Because North Node moves this direction when everything moves this direction. So it passed over her Saturn during this time. And this is fated pivots. This is public direction shifts. This is events that redirect the storyline forward when it comes to Saturn, work, and responsibilities. So Mercury retrograde being conjunct the North Node this past week happens to be on her Saturn. Like that's classic astrology for like a public decision about contracts or media or sharing your voice. With Saturn, it's definitely changes the trajectory of her career. For her, unfortunately, it put a halt to a lot of her career, but I guarantee it's one of those things that both Saturn and North Node are karmic. And so it's kind of like, girl, you were going the wrong direction with The Bachelorette. It's like the universe had to step in. What do I say during eclipse season? Things come in and step in and redirect us. Sometimes they're uncomfortable. Where's Saturn's at 11? She had an eclipse on her Saturn in September. I wonder what was going on in September. You know how some things are like filmed prior or decided on prior? Did she start filming The Bachelorette then? I wonder, something like that. Okay. She had an eclipse on her Saturn. Okay. I would say because Mercury was retrograde, it especially is saying something being reconsidered, pulled back, rewritten. We see that. I think I'm just looking at her chart for The Bachelorette. I think they're going to like pivot and redo it. Maybe the guys that were on her season get to come back. Something gets reversed. Or maybe this is like, I would love to see if the Bachelorette franchise has a birth chart, like what this means for them. But the show canceling right as Mercury crossed this point of her Saturn, it's like 2 on the nose. And the important part is this transit happened twice, okay? It happened, I think it's probably like when that last episode of The Mormon Wives showed her literally pulling up to the Bachelorette, still talking to Dakota. And then now it's retrograde and it revoked. But as Mercury crosses over her Saturn this week for the 3rd time, I think we're going to hear from her. And maybe she's going to get some advice or deals behind the scenes to share her story. I think nobody wants to touch her right now because of her side of the coin, but I will say she's always been honest about that. She's never hidden it. This girl doesn't hide things. She's like incapable of it. I think that's why the world gravitates towards her. It does not excuse her behavior, actions. Da, 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 da. I have to say that. I hate having to say that. I just want to talk about it. But I think this is somebody that is looking at her birth chart. She's going to take accountability. It will be what shifts her in her new direction. I think it's extremely uncomfortable. I do feel for her. I can't help but not feel empathetic for people that are having a huge blow up of their life. And it's just unfortunate for everyone involved. Everybody on the show, her family, all of everybody on the Mormon Wives that had to halt theirs, like, and the people that work behind the scenes on all these shows and the livelihoods. It's like, it's a lot. And I think she's probably can't even hold that responsibility on her shoulders right now. I think that could really push somebody to the limits, and I don't want that to happen for her. So I just want to say that everybody should just be empathetic of everyone involved. But I think, what likely this means for her, this definitely isn't her final chapter. I don't think this is like this girl's buried now and, what's it called, where it's like she can't get anything from here on out. We won't hear from her. No. I think it's usually this original structure closes, so like a more aligned one can form. I think there's going to be negotiated contracts. I think if people have pulled out from her or her own show is at a standstill, I think she's going to be able to renegotiate. Like, if I go do this work or, I share in some way, I think she's going to have a redemption. Okay. There could be a new version of the show, like I mentioned for Bachelorette, and a new version of the Mormon Wives as well. There could be a different platform picking up. That's why I feel like there's like, I think she's going to be on someone's podcast, but then she might start her own. She could also pivot into like more of a controlled narrative where it's like a document style content, a personal brand expansion, podcast subs. I don't think she would do a Substack, because if she's like me with all this Gemini, it's like, we don't want to sit down, we just want to talk. And then an authoritative role in the storyline instead of being reactive to it. I think she's going to want to take ownership and tell her side of it. And I think she will do it in a very accountable way. This isn't somebody, I do feel very clearly, yes, there's probably PR crisis management involved, but like, she genuinely, I think, is going to take accountability. This is somebody that loves truth, loves honesty, loves taking accountability, owning her shit. So even though, yeah, she's probably got advice from a lot of people, I think she's going to do it her way. And I'm really rooting for her to stand up to it and take an authoritative role. Like we talked about the astrology in the beginning of the week for everyone, this is stepping up, taking responsibility moment. So I think she's going to do it. And I don't know how long it might take. Like maybe there's, like I said, a book deal behind the scenes that we don't see for another year. But with the North Node involved, it reads much more like a redirection than a rejection. And it feels like what's more of like her bigger calling. And I think the Bachelorette is more of like, I kind of feel like if she was my friend, I'd be like, I feel like that was kind of taking advantage of you or using you like a fishbowl or something and liking the messiness. Whereas this redirect is going to make you feel much more empowered and in your truth. And you're going to look back at this time as like a thank God moment that didn't work out. And if it wasn't to put me at like the crash out of rock bottom, this new thing wouldn't have emerged. Okay. So I think this retrograde was a cancellation pause, but the direct pass is about a decision that starts to replace it, or sharing your story, sharing your voice vibe. So announcements, restructuring for sure this week. A clearer direction is coming. Storyline shift. It's happening. Okay. So I root for everybody involved. I root for everybody taking ownership of their toxic patterns and behaviors and getting support and getting help. Luckily, it seems like, there's community and people rallying around. I hope there isn't as much enabling going on. I think it's accountability time. Um, but yeah, how interesting. And this is me just also showing how complex astrology is. If we had her time of birth, it would be even more complex. And I just have to call out, like, I get really sick of what I see online of just like basic level, basic bitch astrology. It's like there's so much to it, you guys. Astrology is so complex. So if you're listening to or reading posts about your own astrology to somebody that cannot pull up a fucking chart and actually interpret it, I'd hesitate there. This is a moment with Saturn into Aries. Saturn was in Pisces. I'm going to stop sharing. Thanks, Taylor, for letting us dive into your chart. Saturn was in Pisces for 3 years, which brought a lot of Piscean is like the spiritual community. Okay. Saturn is work. Like we had a lot of people the past 3 years enter the spiritual world. Okay. And because it's an amazing job. It's a cool job. Who wouldn't want to do this for work? But now that Saturn's into Aries, it's saying like, is there real integrity? Is there real skills behind it? Are you able to be an authority in this space? So I just had to like blow a little whistle on that. Like make sure you're getting your information from people that know how to like actually interpret astrology. Yes, it's fun, and yes, it's shareable, and yes, people that are in adjacent fields know more than the average human. And so yeah, I support that for sure. And I support anybody learning this and loving this and wanting to share about it. Absolutely. I just don't like when it's people get scared about what they're reading. Then I get sassy and I'm like, well, does that person even know how to read a chart? Like, don't worry about it. And as you saw with Taylor's chart, astrology and timing is so personal to you. So yes, her birth chart describes like that Scorpio moon, that north node in Scorpio with Pluto, that Mars at the last degree of Aries, the Gemini energy, that's her. That doesn't change. But what's impacting her chart is what's going to wake up parts of her chart, what's going to wake up timings and setbacks or amazing opportunity moments. Same for you. What's going on in your birth chart when you were born doesn't change, but you have the capacity to always be evolving, up leveling, and working towards your highest potential in your birth chart. Okay. And what shifts like continuously is that layer of what's going on in the sky. Where is it hitting your chart? Okay. If you have an eclipse in your fifth house, yeah, that's great. But if you have your moon exactly where the eclipse hit, that's very much like life changing. Okay. Yeah, timings and all of that is very important to look at. Okay. So, I feel like the lessons were sprinkled in throughout. I think next week, unless the world turns into a shitstorm, I want to talk about numerology, the difference between your numerology of your full birthday, what is that called? Like your master number, and then your numerology timing, which is of the year, numerology personal year, and then the numerology of your home, and how those are different, but how fun they are to talk about and learn about. So maybe that'll be the lesson corner. I didn't want this one to get too long, but enjoy this week. I feel like we are out of, I mean, not globally. That shit's gonna, like when Mars enters Aries, Jesus Christ. That's the second half of April. That's gonna be wild. But for us individually, these like the first this is episode 7. The first 6 episodes was because I was like, I have to start this. There's too much going on, too much changing. This week I think is our transition week. I think don't force as much if you're busy. Yeah, that makes sense. But it's like getting your gears going. And next week is when things start really moving forward into April. Okay. The second half of April, we have Mars and Mercury joining Aries. So we will be done with the Piscean like fog. So let this week be like, okay, I got this. Get your shit done that you've procrastinated on because of all the emotions and the like a paralyzation effect of the overwhelm of the energy. Now we have that overwhelm lifting, but not quite the full momentum yet. So, with that overwhelm lifted, start taking those steps. Get that last week of the 4 month adulting out of the way. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Sorry that it's a little later in the day. And reminder, 8 episodes, which will be next week, is the eighth episode. So if you do like these, a lot of you DM me. Feel free to comment on Spotify and YouTube. Like, follow, send it to a friend. Because I'm not gonna lie, like it's, you know, I love doing these, but it is still work. I have to prep it. I have to get on. I have to, honestly, with you guys, I'll just share with you guys. To do my makeup and hair is what usually procrastinates this. I'm like, oh man, I got to do that. Um, so yeah, it's, I want to know what you want more of if I continue this on. And I'll start buttoning it up and making it prettier. And like, on YouTube, how people will have like a cover page with like words and it just looks more official. I'll start doing that after 8 episodes is my goal of like taking this a little more seriously. So thanks for being here from the beginning and being scrappy with me. I will always do the astrology of the week. I think that's what everybody will love to hear. But I like the variety show vibe of like maybe there's a lesson or a pop culture, like because I want it to be like a talk show. I want a talk show one day. I'm gonna manifest that out loud with you guys. So let me know what you want more of, what you want to see on here or things that you've liked. And please share it. Please talk about it with friends. And yeah, I love you guys. I will see you next week.